Welcome to This Explainer. You know, we are going on an absolutely incredible journey today. We're starting way back in the shockingly dark, literally dungeon-like history of mental health treatment, and we're taking it all the way to the highly advanced AI-driven landscape of clinical psychology that we're looking at for the year 2026. If you've ever wondered how on earth humanity went from chaining patients to walls to using complex digital algorithms to streamline modern therapy, well, you are in the exact right place. This is really a story about the evolution of the human mind and how we've actually learned to heal it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Back in the 1700s, people experiencing severe mental distress were frequently thought to be possessed by evil spirits. No joke. They were cast out of society, often kept in literal dungeons, locked in iron chains, and just completely forgotten about. But then, in 1806, Philippe Pinel championed a radical new idea. He argued that ruling patients with a rod of iron was a system built for pure convenience, not for humanity. He refused to keep patients in chains. Instead, he advocated for something that was absolutely revolutionary at the time. He introduced empathy. He started taking written case histories, he kept ongoing treatment notes, and actually focused on treating the patient as a complex human being rather than a prisoner. So, here's our roadmap for today. 1. The origins of empathy. 2. Defining clinical psychology. 3. 4 schools of therapy. And 4. The future of psychology. Let's get right to it. Part 1. The origins of empathy, the journey from asylums to evidence-based practice. Now, these massive historical leaps that transformed overt cruelty into a highly structured scientific profession, they definitely didn't happen overnight. In the 1790s, William Tuke created the York Retreat over in England. At a time when total isolation was the norm, Tuke brought humane care, good food, and actual physical exercise to patients. He gave them a sense of purpose. Then, fast forward a century to 1896, and we get the official birth of the field as we know it today. Leitner Whitmer opened the very first psychological clinic at the University of Pennsylvania, and he's the one who officially coined the term clinical psychology. But the real massive expansion of the profession, that was actually catalyzed by a global tragedy in the 1940s. With the end of World War II, countless soldiers were coming home with severe psychological trauma. They called it shell shock back then, which we now recognize as PTSD. The Veterans Administration was just completely overwhelmed. They desperately needed clinicians, and that forced this unprecedented boom in standardized PhD training programs to properly treat these returning heroes.
Moving on to Part 2, defining clinical psychology and clearing up the confusion.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really common mix-up. People confuse these two professions all the time, but their approaches are fundamentally distinct. Clinical psychologists hold extensive doctorates, like a PhD or a PsyD. They are your absolute go-to experts in psychometrics, meaning highly specialized cognitive, diagnostic, and personality testing. Their primary tool is psychotherapy, using behavioral and cognitive techniques to create real change. Psychiatrists, on the flip side, are medical doctors. Because they go through traditional medical school, their toolkit naturally revolves around the medical model. So their focus is heavily on neurochemistry, which allows them to legally prescribe psychotropic medications and order physiological tests like brain scans. Both disciplines are absolutely vital to mental health care, for sure, but their daily practices are just fundamentally different.
All right, Part 3, 4 schools of therapy. Think of this as the modern clinician's toolbox.
First up in the toolbox, psychodynamic therapy. Growing out of the foundational work of Sigmund Freud, the core goal here is profound personal insight. Now, it's not just about sitting on a couch and talking endlessly about your childhood. It's about breaking repetitive, invisible loops. Psychodynamic therapy makes the unconscious conscious. It helps you understand how early emotional survival defenses, mechanisms you built a long time ago, are actively and usually unhelpfully running your life and your relationships right now.
Next, we have humanistic therapy. Pioneered by Carl Rogers, this approach is radically different. Instead of looking at a patient and diagnosing what is objectively wrong with them, it operates on a deeply empowering premise. You already have the inbuilt, natural potential to heal and achieve self-actualization. The therapist's job isn't to fix you. Actually, their job is to provide the ultimate supportive environment of unconditional positive regard and deep empathy so that your natural growth can seamlessly unfold. Then there's cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. This focuses heavily on identifying and changing dysfunctional schemas. Basically, think of it as debugging the operating system of your mind. It meticulously examines how your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors all interact in real time. CBT is highly effective and heavily action-oriented. If you have biased or deeply critical ways of interpreting the world, CBT doesn't just ask how you feel about it. It gives you concrete, practical techniques to transcend those automatic reactions and fundamentally change your actual behaviors.
Finally, systems therapy. Here, the focus turns entirely outward to the interpersonal dynamics, communication patterns, and assigned roles within couples and families. The really fascinating insight of systems therapy is treating the family unit almost like a mobile hanging above a crib. If you pull on one single piece, the entire structure shifts and recalibrates. By addressing the broader ecosystem, changing one person's behavior can powerfully heal the entire interconnected system. Now, what's really interesting about this transition is that we've essentially established the dramatic history and the core mechanics of therapy as it stands today. But now, we're shifting gears. We're entering Act 2, looking at the modern practices and the cutting-edge trends that are actively shaping tomorrow. Part 4. The Future of Psychology, Navigating the 2026 Horizon. Recent data from Pear Incorporated highlights 4 macro trends that are forcing the field of clinical psychology to adapt faster than ever before. We are looking at secure, specialized AI integration. We're seeing a massive shift toward preventative youth mental health care. We're actively combating climate-based distress. And we're seeing the widespread adoption of digital administration tools. And guys, these aren't just abstract academic concepts. These are direct, immediate responses to the digital overload, global stressors, and everyday realities you are very likely experiencing in your own life right now. So, the crucial point is this. General-purpose AI, like ChatGPT, is incredible. But a psychologist absolutely cannot legally or ethically paste a patient's most sensitive, protected medical information into a public language model. Because of strict data privacy laws, the field is rapidly adopting specialized and closed AI tools. Solutions like encrypted AI report writers are completely revolutionizing the back office of therapy. And the stakes here are really high. We are in the middle of a global mental health crisis, right? Clinicians are dealing with massively rising caseloads. Secure AI buys back thousands of hours of administrative time, allowing psychologists to actually focus their energy on direct patient care instead of drowning in paperwork. And that newfound efficiency, it allows clinicians to focus on another massive shift, youth prevention. The focus in the psychological community is pivoting heavily to the critical first 3 years of life to reduce what are known as adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. Modern youth are facing completely unprecedented developmental stressors today, from chronic digital overload to intense societal instability. So the trend for 2026 is moving decisively away from merely treating symptoms once they manifest in teenagers and moving toward early, proactive prevention, building strong psychological resilience from the very beginning of human brain development. Let's move to the next trend and see how this builds, because this proactive approach also extends to our changing environment with climate psychology. As extreme weather events increase globally, psychologists are studying risk perception to accurately predict human evacuation behaviors. Think about it. Why do some people completely ignore severe hurricane warnings? That is a psychological phenomenon, not a meteorological one. Psychologists are literally collaborating with emergency management teams to draft more effective, life-saving alerts. At the exact same time, they are treating the rising, pervasive tide of climate anxiety, equipping communities with the mental tools they need to handle profound environmental uncertainty. So, this brings us to a pretty provocative question that I want to leave you with today. As AI and climate change profoundly reshape our external world, how will we reshape our own mental health? From the dark, forgotten dungeons of the 1700s to the digital, forward-thinking frontiers of 2026, clinical psychology has always evolved to meet the urgent needs of the moment. Now it's our turn to reflect on our own psychological well-being in this rapidly changing era. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I will see you next time.